Okay, welcome everyone to OWASP London chapter. As you can see, I've been tinkering around with some technical stuff because we are live streaming this event on YouTube. Move this out of the way. Tonight we are in this wonderful venue called Civil Tech Junction, and we are sponsored by Curity. So the pizza drinks can be sponsored by Curity, and they also brought a raffle prize for which you have some QR codes around, and I will show QR codes in a minute. And also Fort Bridge is also provided a raffle prize tonight, and I will share it with you in 1 second. Okay, before we move any further, this venue is a part of a organization called Civil, which runs a conference called Civil Navigate, which is all about AI, cloud, and data sovereignty. This will happen in September, and on September 22nd, I believe. And if you scan this QR code right now, 1 second, go back, you will be able to get a huge discount on your tickets, £575 discount on your tickets. The same QR code is also available over there at the bar as well. So you are invited to join this great conference, which will be happening not in this venue, but at the 155 Bishopsgate, a much larger venue. And if anyone wants to sponsor them, there are sponsorship packages available. Okay, so for everyone who don't know me, my name is Stepanyan. I'm OWASP London chapter leader. We have 3 OWASP London chapter leaders, myself, Andra Letzer, and Sharif. Andra cannot be with us tonight because she's busy. Sharif, I will give you an update on Sharif a bit later because he is off sick. In terms of taking pictures and putting information on social media, please use hashtag OWASP London if you are going to share your photographs or your thoughts. And you can also mention us as OWASP London. We are OWASP London on social media, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and Twitter. I will show you all the social media that we're on. So please just don't forget to use the hashtags and mention us so we can retweet and amplify. Quick update on Sharif Mansour. So Sharif is the head of cybersecurity at Just Eat, and he is also our OWASP London chapter leader and a dear friend of mine. He's been diagnosed with leukemia, and this is why OWASP has been running a blood donation drive for the past 7 or 8 months. Now in London, you can donate blood just off Oxford Street. There is a blood donation center there, Margaret Street. The appointment takes only 1 hour, and if you give blood, you will save 3 lives. So please consider giving blood and save people who need blood. Sharif's health update. So he had a bone marrow transplant surgery in December. He was discharged from hospital and is currently recovering at home. He is doing weekly checkups with doctors, which seem to be pretty stable and good so far, fingers crossed. So I'm looking forward to him recovering and joining us at some point in the future. Now, OWASP is a very comfortable and welcoming community. So we do have a code of conduct, which can be summarized to please be nice and respectful to each other. And you can read the full code of conduct online. But yeah, if there are any issues, please give me a shout out. Now, agenda for tonight, I'm going to give a short introduction, just updates on upcoming OWASP conferences. And then we're going to have Mariya with her talk on North Korea, the great recruitment firewall. And then we're going to have Adrian talking about Vesta Admin Takeover and how Adrian found a very interesting vulnerability that not many people talk about these days. Then we're going to have a quick break and get some more pizza and drinks, little comfort break. And then we're going to have Gary talking about the agentic AI identity. Now, good news, we have raffle. So we have 2 raffle prizes tonight. Raffle prize number 1 is Nintendo Switch 2 console. if you wish to win this wonderful prize, you have to scan this QR code and register for the raffle. We will be running the raffle at the end of this event at 8:45 p.m. Now, raffle prizes are for people present in the audience only. I know we are live streaming, so people are watching online. Unfortunately, you cannot enter the raffle because I have the physical prizes, and they're just for people who are attending our event in person. And yeah, please make sure you follow us on social media to come and attend our event in person if you wish to win a prize. Okay, so this is prize number 1, and then prize number 2 is Flipper Zero, a wonderful security research device, let's call it this way, which allows you to do some wonderful things. And yeah, if you scan this QR code, you can register to win Flipper Zero. We'll display these QR codes throughout. And I think for Curity, they have several QR codes available near their booth and on the bar over there as well. So please do register, because these are awesome prizes. Right? Absolutely awesome. Flipper Zero is an incredible device, so maybe at some point Adrian can do a talk on this in the future. And obviously, for all the video gamers in you, please make sure to register to win the prize. Okay, now, how many people are attending this event for the first time in their life? Raise your hands. Oh, wonderful, almost half of you. So thank you very much for finding us and coming here, all right? I don't know how you found us, but to make sure you don't miss the next event, what you need to do, you need to make sure you follow us, and you can follow us on Twitter or X, on Facebook, on Meetup, or in Eventbrite, on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is probably nowadays the most popular one. We're also on Mastodon and on Blue Sky, so we're OWASP London everywhere. And obviously, we also have the OWASP London YouTube channel, and this is where we are live streaming the event tonight as well. So please make sure that you do subscribe. Okay, now a big announcement for the Meetup. For those people who like meetup.com and the wonderful platform that we've been using for many, many years, they increased their prices by 300%, which means it's no longer sustainable for us as a non-profit foundation, because we would much rather invest this money into our security projects, education, and community outreach, rather than paying all this money to meetup.com. For those people who know, Meetup has been acquired by a company called Bending Spoons, which is owned by billionaire Luca Ferrari. And yeah, they are notoriously known for increasing prices of everything that they acquire. So unfortunately, we will be leaving Meetup at some point very, very soon. So please make sure you also sign up and follow us on all the other channels, and most importantly on LinkedIn. But we also have an old-fashioned mailing list, which you can find on our webpage, which is owasp.org/London. And if you sign up to our mailing list, you will get an email with notification of the next event. There's nothing else on that mailing list, just notifications of upcoming meetings, upcoming events. Now, I'm going to try to play this video about OWASP. OWASP had 100 plus active projects and new project applications are submitted. Projects are open source and are built by a community of OWASP people just like you. Community and networking. There are hundreds of local chapters worldwide and thousands of members. Meetings are free and open to everyone. They include training, talks, and networking opportunities, education and training. OWASP hosts many events each year. They are a great way to improve your skills, build your professional network, and learn about new trends. One of the ways you get involved, become a member. The membership benefits include discounts for events and trainings, your own OWASP email address, and workspace access, a vote in our OWASP Global Board election. And recently, OWASP added a brand new member benefit, access to hands-on application through OWASP's Your Flag Open platform. Join us and become Wonderful. For the first time, the video worked without echo, which is great. As it was mentioned in the video, OWASP chapters are worldwide. So if you are watching us on YouTube, there is a local chapter near you. Please do make sure that you go and attend and join our community in person so you could network and learn from people in person. In the UK, obviously here we are in London, but we have lots of other chapters all around the UK. If any of the cities are close to you, or you have friends who live in the cities, please let them know that there are chapters available. I just recently had a conversation with someone who lives in Edinburgh, and I said, hey, did you know there's an OWASP Scotland chapter in Edinburgh? So they signed up, and we're very happy to go and attend there. Similarly, as in Manchester, in Belfast and Bristol and Dorset, and one of the recent ones are Warwick and Reading, and there's Peterborough as well. Okay, the video talked about OWASP membership. You don't have to be a member to attend any of the events or participate in OWASP activities. However, we strongly encourage, because OWASP membership is a very low barrier entry. It's only $50 a year, so which is something like 36, 38 pounds, according to the currency exchange rate. So it's literally something like £3 a month. So for students, there is a discount, so it's $20 a year. Now, if any of you want to become corporate sponsors or corporate supporters of OWASP, you can do that as well. There are multiple packages available. You can join OWASP by just going to owasp.org/join and buy a membership for $50 or $20 if you're a student. Once you become an OWASP member, you get access to this wonderful Secure Flag training labs, right? Where you will be able to learn how to code securely, and you will go through multiple labs in different languages. And also it has like a CTF style or hack the box style labs as well. And another platform available is Checkmark's Code Bashing, which is secure coding training. There are lots of training courses there. So they're not in a lab format, they're interactive courses, which actually teach you about different aspects of application security. Also compliance, they have hundreds and hundreds of training courses, which are usually quite expensive if you are a commercial customer, but if you're an OWASP member, this is all available to you for free. So you can join OWASP by going just to owasp.org/join. Now, there is obviously all these benefits of becoming an OWASP member. There is one extra benefit, okay? And let me move this thing away. And that is you can get this really rare vintage sticker. See, I have it on my laptop. And there's one person in the audience. Where's Mr. Rack? So Michael just bought OWASP membership and he got the sticker. So here's the deal. If you go to owasp.org/join and become an OWASP member tonight, and you show me the confirmation email, or maybe you became an OWASP member earlier, just show me the confirmation email from OWASP that you remember, and you will get this rare vintage sticker from me, because it's not available from anywhere else, because I got the last stash of the stickers I got back in 2016 from one of the OWASP Global Upside conferences. Okay, in terms of the corporate membership, we have lots of chapter supporters to which we are very, very thankful. So these are all the logos of all the companies who support us. If you would like to support the OWASP London chapter and have your logos displayed and have your swag available, bring prizes, please come and talk to me. It's very simple. Now, tonight, let's give a round of applause and appreciation to Curity, who provided pizza and drinks, and Fullbridge, who provided Flipper Zero. Right, one more time for latecomers, there are prizes. If you haven't scanned these QR codes, please do take pictures, scan, and enter during the meeting, so you can win this wonderful Nintendo Switch console, which is kindly donated by Curity. And okay, I'll go back. John, Matt, you guys entering? Yeah, scanning. I can see some mobile phones going up. Okay, scanned. And the second one is Flipper Zero from Fullbridge. after all the talks, we will run the raffle. So this is only for in-personers. Now, this year, OWASP celebrates its 25th anniversary. So 25 years of us talking about application security vulnerabilities, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, hard-coded credentials, supply chain issues, 25 years. And if you look at the OWASP top 10 for 2026, you will see that most of the vulnerabilities are still there. However, we are going to have a party. We're going to celebrate. And there are 12 OWASP chapters all around the world who invited to have a party. So we're going to have a party at the end of March. So on the 31st of March, this is going to be the next event. So mark your diaries. I hope to get a big cake. We had a big cake for the 20th anniversary of OWASP London chapter. Now for 25th anniversary, I will try to get a really big, nice cake. And there will be balloons. And of course, there will be speakers, right? So another thing that I do, apart from the stickers, I started doing this proof of attendance NFT, which is kind of a digital sticker that you can keep as a memento of you being here in person in your crypto wallet. And for this month's meetup, we have our OWASP Cyber WASP just outside All Street station sign. And yeah, if you wish to collect this NFT from me in person, which is a proof of attendance protocol NFT, proving that you were here. And even if you don't know how NFTs work, right, I will teach you, come and see me, because you need to scan a special QR code from my phone, because this proves that you were here in person, because that's the only way to get that NFT in your crypto wallet. Right, so OWASP will be running a big global AppSec conference in Vienna in June. This is one of our best premieres. There's going to be over 1,000 attendees. There are 3 days of training, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of June. And on the 25th and 26th, we're going to have big conference with lots of tracks, with Capture the Flag competition, with lots of other events, project meetups. So please do sign up, because obviously OWASP conferences, they're paid conferences, because this is our major way of fundraising for us. So please do ask your employers to go to this conference and learn. If you are a organization, like a vendor, we have a few in the audience, and you would like to sponsor and have a booth, or you want to sponsor a lanyard or breakfast or lunch or a bag at the conference, the website is up, so you can just go viennaglobalAppSec.org and register there as an exhibitor or as an attendee. So it's going to be absolutely awesome. As a part of it, there's going to be a threat modeling conference known as ThreatModCon, which usually happens on a Saturday. So the conference is Thursday and Friday, 25th, 26th of June. And on Saturday, we have ThreatModCon. So please do register. Now, OWASP is not only chapters and conferences, it's also known for its open source projects. We have over 250 open source projects with a few flagship projects which are known to everyone, including OWASP Top 10, but it's not just OWASP Top 10. We have things like Cyclone DX standard, we have Juice Shop, we have dependency track, we have cheat sheets, which is most useful project for developers, really, because if you're a developer and you're trying to learn about application security, all the OWASP information can be really, really overwhelming. But cheat sheets is the best way of finding what you need very quickly. You can just go and say, how do I do secure authentication? How do I work securely with a database? How do I work securely with AI? There is a cheat sheet for every single use case, and it's open source, and you can contribute yourself. Now, we're going to move to our talks. So for people watching online and people in the audience, it's going to be quite difficult for me to run around and ask questions. I will do that. But you can also ask your question online. So if you go to slide.do/OWASP, that's our Q&A system where you can ask questions. Okay, and now we're going to move to our first talk. I'm going to invite Mariya to the stage. And while Mariya sets up her laptop, I'll just say a few words about her. So Mariya is actually a people and talent person. So very passionate about open source. And as part of her job, she has to interview people. And occasionally she comes across some very strange people who use all sorts of tricks and AI, pretending to be genuine candidates, but they actually turns out to be spies from a very well-known nation state. And as you may or may not know, there were at least 50 global organizations, including big banks and financial services, which had North Korean spies joining the organization, fully passing the interview, and then stealing the company details and siphoning them off, and just using AI, because you can do it nowadays. You can, if you are applying for a remote job, you can be anyone you want. So let's all give a very warm welcome to Mariya. I'm gonna stop sharing. And Mariya, before I pass on to you.
There we go. Right here, let me just share screen. You'll have to excuse me, I'm usually not a Mac user, so this is just a very opportune Mac that I managed to borrow. So bear with me 1 second. Good. At some point. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here. I am indeed the one who infiltrated you guys now, right? HR is everywhere and you cannot escape us. So, but yes, thank you for having me here. Today, I wanted to chat to you about my adventures in how I think I am now the terrorist for the North Koreans, honestly. But I have been progressing. I have been getting some better meta candidates, you know, with better acting abilities. So let me tell you about that. So first of all, to properly introduce myself, thank you, by the way, Sam, for giving me this introduction. But indeed, I'm somebody who's been working kind of HR and recruitment for around about 12 years at this point. And specifically within tech for closer to about 8 of those years. And I'm indeed noticing that there is just a lot more, you know, a massive influx of candidates, of course. And through those, I noticed that a lot of them do not exist. So what I do is I try to save my team's time, because we do need genuine people when it comes to either be software engineers. Currently, I'm trying to hire a design engineer, if anybody knows, holla. But what I am not, however, is somebody who, you know, I'm not an engineer myself. I try to tinker. You know, I may be running Arch Linux, but that doesn't mean anything, right? So ultimately, what I have to do is I have to rely on, you know, the experience that I have seeing, believing my own eyes. And it has become a little bit more difficult, but specifically what has become a little more difficult is that these people are spraying and praying. So let me show you a little bit more about what their equipment is, what my equipment is, what I'm currently doing, and what I would like to invite you guys all to think about. So, number one, let's talk about their equipment, which I have noticed from, I want to say, about 30 to 40 conversations with very, very obviously fake candidates, right? Number one, they do actually have real accounts from LinkedIn. So some of you may think, oh, just check their LinkedIn. If it doesn't exist, it's not that easy. Not only do they have fake accounts, they also have verified by persona, supposedly, fake account, like either real accounts they have either stolen, or they take one account and they put it onto another platform. So I have messaged some people to be like, hey, did you actually apply for our role? And they're like, I don't know who you are. So what they do is they have a whole bunch of ways to either steal the information, steal legit, you know, accounts. I'm not quite sure how they do it, but yeah, initially I thought, oh, you know what? I'm just going to check if they have it. Yes, they do. They have verified accounts. Then the next thing that they also have is sometimes they do have pretty bad digital masks. It is kind of hilarious to see. You know, let's face it, especially for the North Koreans, their ping is not great. So when they're the thing that the dips are off. So I think what ended up happening is over the time, they kind of just stopped using it, but sometimes they'll still have it, that sort of uncanny valley look. Then they either have, they are equipped though. They are equipped. They have a very nice headset looking thing. Sometimes some of them, I guess, like the lower level people have, little white earbuds and a stand mic with like a little red ring on it. As soon as I see that setup, I'm like, oh, sweetie, you're not one of the top ones, and I'm not going to have fun with this call. God damn it. They do have very comfortable looking chairs, very great padding, ergonomics, all of that good stuff. I'm like, I don't know who you guys are, but you know, I guess in your regime, you're the respected ones. You know, they managed to get the comfy looking chairs. They do have pretty poor, but improving research when it comes to the kind of profile they're pretending to be, the kind of technologies they're pretending to have experience with, the kind of companies they've pretended to work for, and, you know, companies like, you know, research about my company where I work. So it is improving slowly, or I don't know, as I said, I think I'm just getting the better actors. But this is the thing that I really want to encourage people, is to have a bit of a think about what else is next if their research gets a lot better. Then their fluctuating acting ability. So some of them get very, very easily flustered. And here's the hilarious thing. So as you may have recognized by my name, I am originally from, I'm not British, so I'm originally from Bulgaria. And it is quite hilarious when I get North Koreans pretending to be Serbian, Bulgarian, Polish. They genuinely love pretending to be Eastern Europeans. So sometimes I literally go, oh, you're from Poland, dzień dobry. Oh, you're from Serbia, zdravo kumshir. You know, stuff like that. And you can see the light just dimming. You know, they were trying to be so brave. They were really trying to put it on. And you'll see later on, I do have videos. Hopefully it works, but you'll see later on, some people are great at acting and some people are not. Bless them. I'm like, oh, I feel bad. I'm kind of bullying these people, you know? I'm really kind of, you know, basically, you know, displaying them their open glaring, you know, in the open glaring holes in their research. They do, however, have, I don't know whether it's ChatGPT or whatever it is, but they're obviously reading their answers. And some of them, because of course it takes a couple of seconds, you know, sometimes up to about 10 seconds for the answer to appear. And some of them literally just sit quiet, staring me right in my digital eyeballs. And some of them have, oh, that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. I really appreciate it. Buying time. And then they just type out, well, you know, they just spit out whatever it is, especially considering the specific company I work for has like a very specific technology that we really work with, which is GraphQL. The amount of times I've heard GraphQL said by these people, I'm just there like, I don't even think very GraphQL specific engineers talk about it as much as you do. So bless them again, they do try. And then really spray and play applications. I want to congratulate AI for really helping out these people. They're absolutely able to pray and spray applications no matter how many questions we put in, no matter what we try to do. Like, I want to say that for one of the front-end engineer roles that we had, 85% of every single application I managed to kind of recognize by certain things, which I'll go into a bit more detail about, that they were fake. 85%, that was a lot of them. But again, and I'm pretty sure I also spoke with one person twice, like the same guy. So they are pretending to be different people. One person was pretending to be the Spanish guy called Borja, and I was ready to be like, hola Borja, ¿qué tal? And he dialed in with the name Petar. And I was like, oh, a different person dialed in. I hung up, I emailed Borja, I don't know what happened. I guess you couldn't join the call, but somebody else hacked in. What happened? And he goes, Petar is my middle name. Great, good on you, lad. And then I was like, aha, you guys are just spraying and praying applications. So congratulations, AI. Thank you so much for helping out. And again, I swear I'm not an AI Luddite. I swear I am not. I try not to be, but in like the whole AI race of like candidates and companies and stuff like that, no one's winning. I can tell you, no one's winning. However, let me tell you about my equipment. I have eyeballs and ears. Now, this is going to sound very prejudicial. And I know, coming from HR, oh my God. But I know that there are very, very few people that have incredibly Korean Asiatic features in Eastern Europe. Don't get me wrong. Very funnily enough, in a village very close to me, where I'm from in Bulgaria, it's literally called the Kazakhs. the village itself, because in the 1800s, there were around about 3,000 people that had moved from Kazakhstan to Bulgaria. Now, did every single one of them go and become a software engineer? I've been in that village. No, it did not. That's not how it's going on. So I do have eyeballs and ears. I can hear accents. I can tell that these people are not who they say they are immediately. I also do happen to speak quite a few languages, which, as I mentioned before, it does end up to trip them up. It is my favorite way to trip them up. I have learned a whole bunch of how to say hello in a bunch of stuff. Also, if you ever happen to, think that you're speaking to a North Korean and you have potentially confirmed that dongmu means comrade, their eyeballs do pop. So when you say that. And yes, I actually had somebody that I was like, oh, again, Polish person. I was like, oh, dzień dobry. Started talking to him in Polish and, some of the stuff that I learned. And he goes, I would like to remain professional and speak in English. Oh yeah, I was getting red. I was like, oh, man called me unprofessional. Not a great call if you want to get a job, sweetie, but okay. Then I also have better knowledge of, first of all, the companies they pretend to work. A lot of them have pretended to work at Amazon. I guess they feel that is like their thing. And my favorite thing is to ask them, so what level engineer are you? Now, if any of you are not familiar with Amazon, engineering starts from level 4. Anything level 1, 2, and 3 is warehousing. I worked at Twitch before, so I'm quite aware of how it works. So I love asking them, are you a level 2 or level 3 engineer? They, of course, choose level 3. Of course, they choose level 3. They have to be pretending to be the more senior one. So I have better knowledge of the companies they pretend to be working at. I do research that quite a bit. It does take time, but you kind of have to do that. I also have a better understanding of the technologies. Again, the amount of people that have pretended GraphQL is used in every single company that have worked, the amount of spraying and praying of GraphQL that there has been in those CVs, oh my goodness. You would think that the company where I work should be swimming in money managing the GraphQL stuff. So yeah, this was lovely to see. And it's honestly, it's one of the major reasons why I hate now being able to, I'm now more and more able to identify them at CV stage. I don't even chat to these people anymore, although I should. And yeah, the West/the world. I just happen to know a bit more about the world, especially with the North Koreans. Now, there are some people out there that are from other places, pretending again to be people from other nationalities and stuff like that. But specifically with the North Koreans, it is hilarious to try and get them to be like, oh, you're in Dublin. Oh, whereabouts in Dublin are you? Are you in X district? I don't know any districts in Dublin. And the way they go, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, oh, do you go to this cafe often? Yeah. I've been to Dublin once, maybe 10 years ago. I don't remember anything. All I remember is that Mongolian barbecue place that like everybody ends up going to. It was all right. So yeah. And that leads me to the last one, lies. I love lying to these people. It is so much fun because they're like the first versions of GPT. They're the sycophantic. They're agreeing with me all the time. I'm like, I love it. I love this thing. So yeah. Now, do I use every single one of these tools? No, of course not. Sometimes I do get also a bit more like, oh, do you know what? I can't even bother with this person. So I don't use every single one of these. I just quickly screen them. And the other thing that I also do is I don't use them immediately. Because ultimately what you don't want to do is you don't want to fall into the trap of actually stereotyping somebody who might be from maybe South Korea or somewhere else, who might be genuinely living in another place, right? So it's not a one size fits all. So I want to talk to you about some of the interactions of note that I've had, which are the most hilarious one. This one is going to be, you'll get to see him later, but I get the feeling, again, I can't pin, but I get the feeling this person was maybe from like Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, something like that. Pretend to be in Staffordshire, And I was like, oh, okay, what's going on there? And you'll see later he pretended to be, a whole bunch of other things. And I just ran laps around this guy. And it was so hilarious that genuinely at one point his internet gave out with how much he was laughing. And I was laughing. And we both knew we were having fun, I wish he didn't waste half of an hour of my time, but sure. Then this one was a very interesting one. I had to follow him around quite a bit. So I had a legit LinkedIn profile. It was supposedly a Japanese person, because sometimes they do use Asian founding names to give them plausible deniability that they're from somewhere in Asia when they kind of look. So He studied in Bulgaria. I'm like, jackpot, hello. Let me tell you something. In Bulgaria, there are very, very few universities that will allow you to study in English. There are some, more and more are coming up. But in the time that he was pretending to have studied like 15 years ago, there were very, very few. And also in Bulgaria, you cannot have lived there for 5 years and have survived without learning a lick of Bulgarian. I'm sorry, that's just, I refuse to believe it. He was now living in Poland for the last 15 years or so. Didn't speak a lick of Polish, didn't speak a lick of Japanese, didn't speak a lick of Bulgarian. Again, I just love that. He was, I think, I thought I made him cry at one point, but I was like, okay, I'll let you go now. You carry on, you're living your life. Oh yeah, and then some of the ones, they don't really know how to pronounce their names in the supposed local language. So there was a Romanian guy who was, in Romanian, the name would be Marcel, if it's with a C. However, he was introducing himself as Marcel. I'm like, oh, sweetie, you can do better. Like, just go on. You have evidently access to the internet. You're one of the very few people in your country that has access to the internet. Surely you can go and research how to pronounce this name in this language. There are plenty of videos. And the last one, that dude didn't even try. So somebody named Dorota was meant to, for those of you not aware, that's a very strongly women's name in most of the Eastern European region. The most sleepy sounding man appeared in front of me. Now, that was just, I was like, dude, do you not have any girls? I feel sad. Isn't the whole thing of North Korea meant to be, equality and socialism? And bear in mind, I come from an ex-socialist country, equality is that. There's a lot of female engineers in Bulgaria. But what the hell, man? You didn't even try it. Am I not worth the effort? How dare you? How dare you? So, now, we're having all the fun. Right? I'm having all the fun. However, here are some unforeseen consequences of what this is all leading to. Because, let me tell you something, HR is not responding well. First of all, some of you, I'm seeing some familiar faces. Some of you may have been at DC 4420, where I gave like a similar version of this talk, like a shorter version of this, where at the time, I was not really aware of what's happening, but no one in HR is talking about this. No one is trying to protect themselves. Everyone is suffering in silence. I thought it was predominantly for roles that are remote. Turns out not the case. I have a friend of mine in Bulgaria who literally has roles that are hybrid, and he has a bunch of people pretending to be Bulgarians applying. I'm like, brother, how do you think this is going to work out for you? So what's happening at the moment is that, for us, we in HR, as you very well know, very often, if you're a hammer, every problem is a nail. So for us, we only have very specific tools that we can think of protecting ourselves. Number one is longer interviews, just putting people through the gauntlet. I mean, this is in general that's been happening. Again, you can see also my inner monologue on the side. I hate long interviews. I do not like 3 stages. If you don't know enough, move on, like, ugh, long interviews. But also convoluted applications, because we're trying to get rid of the whole like, oh, maybe if we can ask them specific questions, we can catch them out, maybe we can catch the M dashes in their AI generated, but everyone at their grandma is AI generating the questions, the answers to the questions now in the applications. So it's kind of useless to actually do this because no one is reading those. I'm sorry, in this day and age, just a quick tip from me, if somebody's asking you for a cover letter, go and ask them why. Because I can tell you, very few people are reading those. I'm not reading those, but I don't require them. Then really diabolical tests and challenges, trying to get people to be like, okay, you need to have a monitored, proctored task, and then you're going to do a live coding challenge, and then you're going to do this other thing. And it just becomes, again, like an absolute like gauntlet to get any job. So this is impacting all of us, regardless of the role, regardless of whatever. This is impacting everybody. Proctored interviews are becoming another thing where literally there are 3 companies that have tried to sell me solutions to be like, ooh, when you have a candidate do a coding interview, we're going to get them to download something onto their platform, onto their own PC to monitor what they're running. So I don't know about you, but I don't want stuff rummaging around in what I'm running, what websites I'm visiting and stuff like that. And then, yeah, that leads to a lot of privacy invasion, realistically speaking. That's the only way at the moment that I am seeing HR tech solving this. It's like a whole bunch of, oh, when you apply, you verify your identity. As we saw with LinkedIn specifically, that's not always working, which I asked one of them and they did not have an answer. I said, like, what about persona? All of these profiles are supposed to be verified. What's happening? Or again, very close system monitoring. So if we don't want to give away a lot of our privacy in order just to have the right to have a job, this is kind of where, I think we really need to have a bit more of a general think about what we can do to avoid these, because ultimately what is happening is that it is wasting my time to eventually be able to review your applications. I don't know, I haven't hired anybody in cybersecurity in a while, but in general. So what to do? Now, there is no silver bullet. Here are some of my stuff and some of the things that I think very technical people can help out non-technical people, right? Now, I really read through the CV as much as possible. As I mentioned, if I see keywords spraying and praying, I'm like, really? Really? You use all of this tech? I try as much as possible to find exactly what the tech stack is of each company. It's not always available, but I do try. But sometimes if I'm not sure, I literally go up to one of the engineers and I'm like, does this pass the smell test? Like, is this how these things are used? Because very often it does write such utter nonsense. Like the AI generated interviews are such utter nonsense. So if you ever, get a thing, just, if you, especially working in a company that has maybe like an HR team, just be like, hey, do you need any help reading CVs? Just go volunteer like half an hour at a time, help them be like, that's bullshit, that's not real, what's going on there? Help them identify this, because ultimately, again, we're not techie people, we have other skill sets. Then again, the experiences that graduate, as I said, this one person pretended to have done GraphQL at every single job, and he was like at Amazon and at a company where I've worked again, and I'm just like, there's no way you've done GraphQL everywhere, please calm down. And then this is the thing, you try to catch them in verifiable lies, like with the Amazon thing that I mentioned previously, right? You try to catch them in verifiable lies, because otherwise you're operating in the sense of, oh, I'm assuming this is not, like I haven't verified this. I don't know if this is the case, right? Language check, always helpful if you just speak a bunch of languages, or even if you don't, just saying like sometimes like hello in supposedly what's meant to be their own language, always helpful, always drains the blood from their face. And again, this is the thing, this is probably one of the major reasons why I'm talking about these things. I just want this to be shared. I share with my own team all the time. I'm like, hey guys, guess what? Here's a chat that I had today. Here's what's been going on. And the team, first of all, we all have a bit of a laugh. Secondly, they later on know what to watch out for. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I do have a thing of, our COO kept asking, oh, say Kim Jong-un, tell them to tell you Kim Jong-un is stupid. Now, this is why I don't like doing this. I have come across people who genuinely were Korean, living in Germany, immediately set off alarm bells, has worked in GraphQL, a legit candidate. Same with somebody who was a Japanese person living in the US, has lived in Poland before, all confirmed. Global citizens exist. Let's not get them to be like, oh, you're supposedly a Korean person, so tell me Kim Jong-un is stupid. That is incredibly biased, and that's where HR is going to knock down on your door to be like, are you discriminating against people? What's happening here? So this is why you try to catch them on the facts. You can have fun with the languages. You can have fun with those sorts of things. You can have your team, like HR team, have fun with those things. But in general, this is not how to try and catch people. And the other thing that I also learned as well, and this one is my bad for anyone that later on might get fooled by this, do not correct them with specifics. I did that. I did the whole Amazon thing. I was like, you're not a level 3 engineer. That's not how it works. And then the next person, I guess they're in the same room, heard about this, had a conversation with me. I'm a level 4 engineer now. I didn't even give them level 4 as an option. So these are the kinds, don't correct them with specifics. They will learn. They will make notes of this. So, just as a heads up there. And here's some of the stuff as of yet unsolved. Again, I don't know how much each of you can potentially help with these things, but what can be done to verify these things without disrupting candidate experience? Because ultimately, you can create all of these hooplas and checks and balances and all of these things, but ultimately, it's going to make you guys as candidates, anybody here job searching, I've been through job searches myself, I've been on the other side, it is an absolute nightmare because of all of these things. And again, some of you might be wondering, why do I have to do 100 different things, right? Partly, very big reason is this, right? Very big reason is because we're trying to catch out the people for whom this is like, they're looking for an opportunity to enter into a company, especially if you ever work in a company that does infrastructure and stuff like that, it's gonna happen. Then the other thing is that I have my time wasted. I could spend that time speaking, having genuine conversations with, the tech community as candidates. Now my time is wasted with these people. And then again, the last thing that I personally am very concerned about is how do we make sure we do this without making people to be like, okay, before you interview with us, here are, you need to solve this riddle and you need to go and do this cryptography. Like, this is not Cicada, okay, from back in the day. Like, this is just a normal job. I am not giving you some sort of, riddle, like I'm not a sphinx, it really shouldn't be this difficult. You shouldn't have to give away so much of your data and disrupt your own privacy, really, to just be able to apply for a job. So these are, honestly, I can tell you, HR is not going to solve this, sadly. None of us are. We are not equipped with the information. I know my own limitations, okay? So here are some guest stars. Let's see how the audio is going to work on this. Yes. Is this also going to, does need to be there? Well, let's do that.
Right now, are you local from Staffordshire?
What? I think it is. I think it's echoing.
No, actually,
Bear with me 1 second, guys. It is muted, the audio.
Zoom?
Yeah.
Is your Zoom
Yeah.
audio muted?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. Yeah, it's muted at the moment. Yeah, so there's no audio from the PC itself. So.
local from Staffordshire?
Oh, you need
Yeah.
to turn audio off on Zoom. Here.
Yeah.
Let's let the speaker into leave computer audio.
Okay.
My parents know all.
Okay. I think we
So
figured it out.
I say you are in Staffordshire right now. Are you local from Staffordshire? No, actually, my parents know all. Moved from Poland, so basically, we're Polish. Shifted, migrated from Poland to England. Ah, Poland. Dzień dobry. Well, anyway, shifted in the. I just learned English and a little bit Spanish. Well, podemos hablar en español, ¿por qué no? ¿Por qué no? Podemos hablar en español, ¿no? Yeah, we were there during the day and it was really, really nice. So yeah, you might see like, I'm jealous. As somebody who's from Bulgaria, I'm very jealous of you guys as well.
But I'm jealous of you. But also when I get a chance to work with your beautiful team lead and HR team.
Funnily enough, my partner is from CPU. So, basically I do spend a lot of time in Romania. I myself, from the border, I'm from Bulgaria, so I'm from the border. And from what I understand, you yourself have moved from Sibiu to Bucharest, is that correct?
Yeah, so correct.
Okay. Would it be more comfortable for you if we also switch to Romania? Like, I'm happy either way.
Yeah.
Speak Romanian.
First to I will thank you, but yeah, I really first that to thank. I'm totally fine coaching in English and used to working with international team states. So it feels natural for me, but if at any point you people to switch in Romania, I perfectly compatible with that user.
All right. I'll tell you what, unfortunately, it is the end of the day here. I have to tell you that I personally think that you may not be the person that you pretended to be on YouTube, because you don't know where Intercom are based. You don't know that Intercom don't offer remote positions in Ireland, considering that I have worked at Intercom myself. So I don't think that who you say you are, who you say you are. Have a good morning over there. Take care.
Korean.
인터컴이라는 회사에서 마지막에 일했다고 썼는데 거기서 쓴 리모트가 나간다는데 약간 거기서 일했다고 그래서 인터컴은 이거 리모트가 그렇게 뭐 리모트 하여를 안 하는데 리모트 하였다고 그러더니 무서워요. 나가 무슨 일이다. 빨리 기가 있어다고. I didn't know that.
Rightio. So our guest stars, ladies and gentlemen, our guest stars. This, honestly, I did like a supercut of this, like slightly longer as a Christmas present for our team. They were like, this is the highlight of the year. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed it too. And I think it was quite important as well to get this confirmation. We actually, funnily enough, in my team have somebody who speaks Korean. And it was kind of funny because he immediately recognized this is definitely North Korean dialect. It is absolutely confirmed 100%. So I wasn't just going off of like, oh, you know, because North Korea is like in the news now. I wasn't kind of imposing origin onto these people because my colleague actually thought that potentially these could be, those people that are kidnapped for pig butchering scams and stuff like that. So my colleague, when she was talking to these people, she was taking the much more compassionate approach. I'm a very mean person, so that's why I just decided to have fun, because I know that honestly, the pig butchering scam is so much more like low, it's different effort, and it is a lot easier to, I think, execute at a level that is not state sponsored, let's put it that way. So that's why I was under the impression, and then these people, thank goodness they don't know how to hang up. And by the way, this afterwards continued for another like at least 20 seconds, but of course there wasn't anything interesting that happened. There was no random guy coming off screen scratching his butt. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to me ramble. Right.
Hey,
questions maybe?
Questions, yeah. There were some of mine, but
Okay.
I think some of them were jokes, which is very, very interesting.
It's all right. I can take a quick joke, Sven.
Okay, right.
If I'm to be making joke of, light of this, I should really also.
Question number one: are there any North Koreans in the audience? Our friends. Okay. Another question: should we add proof you're not a nation state to the application form?
Well, that would be great, and that could be a great conversation starter. I think with most applicants, like that would probably be like, we'll take my conversation with every candidate in a very different direction. But ultimately, again, they also can lie. So sadly, yeah.
Another question: when you see a job posted on LinkedIn nowadays and corresponding metrics of how many people have clicked apply, can we safely assume 85% are fake?
Let's call it maybe 75 just to be safe, mainly because, again, I know that the company that I'm currently in, we do kind of a lot of infrastructure. We kind of appear as also US based, which again, a lot of US. So they also do tend to apply more to companies that have US based headquarters, because they do know that sadly, it does seem like the US is a little bit easier to infiltrate, because in the US, you can't be asking questions. You can't be talking about their country of origin. You can't be doing that. I have a little bit of a runaround, because like a little bit of a loophole, by opening the fact that I'm from somewhere else, and therefore I cannot be accused of discriminating, against people from somewhere else. I open that door and I speak those languages to kind of like, if anything, have a little bit more of a thingy moment. But in America, in some places, the laws are quite strict about it. You can't like talk to them in like a different language. You can't talk to them anything outside of the interview itself. So that's why I get the feeling that they think the US is more easy to infiltrate, but I would say 75% is easier to.
Sorry. Thanks. Next question, which was submitted online at slide of OWASP. If Gen AI is significantly helping these fake applicants, do you find multiple CVs you get are very similar to each other as a result?
Oh, absolutely. I had this one, and this was a bit sad for me personally, because I do have a whole bunch of friends like very much affected by this. At one point, I remember, again, I was hiring for a full stack engineer, And there was an entire batch of candidates who had applied at 3 o'clock in the morning UK, no, sorry, 2 o'clock in the morning UK time, because I remember calculating it was 3 a.m. in Poland, that there were supposedly about 20 Ukrainians from in Poland who had applied to our roles, every single one of them exactly the same. So there were a couple of things. The CV looked exactly the same. They just changed the companies and like slight like durations, university has been changed, stuff like that. But every single one of them had first name, last name, 4 digits. That's it. Like it was just all the same. Every single one of them. Again, I did not know GraphQL was so goddamn popular, you know? So that's when I realized, like, oh no, this is not it.
Especially submitted live at OWASP. Do you have to validate identity during right-to-work checks? If so, what's the difference with identity checks up front when you say it's invasion of privacy?
So the whole point is that if you're going to be giving away your identity to every single company you've applied, think about how many companies you've applied versus how many companies you've worked at. That's the way to think about it, in my opinion, at least, and why I personally, you know, previously when I worked, you know, in order to get a job, I had applied to at least about 300 places. If I have to have my identity spread, like, you know, here you go, have my driver's license at 300 places. Then if it ever gets leaked, where do I chase it from? You know, so that's kind of my concern there. I'm not saying that it is a universal concern, but at least it's mine.
The audience.
Yeah. Hi, Mariya, thank you for the presentation. Very nice.
Thank you.
You know, as you said, you're using different methods for identifying the different identifiers. What about using someone's accent? Let's say, for example, if I say to you, let's say if I do a demonstration with you, and I say, okay, I'm from America, but as you know, that people from America have a certain accent already. You can always tell them, at least I can, and then you say, no, about you're not American because you might. For example, I'm actually Pakistan. In South Asia, Turkish Asia. So there is always a tip in the slight accent change.
Always.
So, good question.
So accents is a great thing. Again, bear in mind, I also have an accent. My accent has shifted I've been in the UK for 20 years at this point. My accent has shifted massively. When I first came, I sounded like I dropped just directly from the plane from California. I was asking for water everywhere. So accents are, I would say, one tiny element. It's the way it is in general for every behavior. Like you don't say one thing and that's immediately suspicious, right? But it can be. Ultimately, what you do is you're like, okay, this person, interesting story. You're from Pakistan. How did it happen? What's going on? Like, you know, ultimately you also, you know, you also do have to check. For example, during my interview, I check with people, right to work, stuff like that. You have to check, especially, for example, I work in a company and we can't sponsor visas here in the UK. And I just want to be transparent and upfront with people, right? So that's how very often it does open the window for like these conversations to just be conducted in good faith. Bear in mind, I am now kind of poking fun at this, but I genuinely have very good faith conversations with every single person I try to have. It's only towards the end, like you're seeing the end stages where I'm like, I know you're not this person at this point. So accents, I want to say, is probably like the lowest level of like behavior that I would find, oh, this is interesting, you know? Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear towards the end. Sorry. It's the fake candidates. It's helped them. It does not help me. If anything, it has made it just so not accessible. It has made it so accessible for these people to spray and pray their applications to just, you know, you can have like, for example, we have questions that are like, you know, give us an example of a project or something like that. So then we can use in the conversation immediately when I later on have a conversation with these candidates, right? So I tell them like, during the application, give me an example. And it can spin up an example of some kind. it can create an answer, and it just automates those things quite heavily. So yeah, it's definitely helped them. It has not helped me. That's at least my opinion.
One more question.
So I ask every single person whether I can, because we use it, I use it as a note taker, especially when I had a time when I had around 15 roles that I was recruiting for at the same time. I was having about 10 conversations a day with each person, with people. So for me, it's a bit of jogging my memory to kind of be able to, properly pay attention to each candidate and be more present in the conversation. So that ends up recording the interviews, but I do, we mention it beforehand, we talk about it. If somebody says, I'm not comfortable with this, I don't record it. But most of the time I do.
I'm just wondering if you're saying that totally off nation states for regular this, what do you think is the objective of?
Oh no, it is nation states. I believe it is nation states, specifically with North Korea. I know it's nation states because there's no one else that has access to the internet. You have to be part of the nation state there to have access to the internet. If it's someone else, it could be just like oh, I want to pretend to be a candidate from a different location where I'm more likely to get hired. Sometimes people might think there's like an entire sort of call center sort of farm that is like, hey, we're just going to do a bunch of, instead of tech support, we're just going to do a bunch of programming for these companies, and just, all they need to do is like 2 to 3 salaries before we find out that they're not a great candidate. And at that point, they've gotten a bit of money.
Wonderful. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I can't see which one.
Okay. Let me first. You bringing your laptop? Okay. Okay. I will reshare my slides for just 1 second. Okay, quick reminder that you can ask questions online using slide.do/OWASP. And next up, we have Adrian on stage. Adrian is a very regular face here at OWASP London. I think many of you are regulars to see Adrian coming to our meetup, so you have multiple years. And finally, he is speaking. Adrian is a founder of a penetration testing company called Bridge, and he has been a security researcher for 20 years plus, and he has found many security vulnerabilities in a variety of products and applications throughout his life. And today he's going to talk to us about one interesting vulnerability that he's found recently, and that is in a Vesta CP panel. So I'm going to pass the microphone to you, Adrian. And I'm going to stick this little mic on you as well, so people online could hear you. Cool. Wonderful.
Thank you very much, Sam. Now let's see if the setup works again.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Perfect. Cool. Thank you very much for joining. Today, I'm going to be talking about Vesta control panel, in particular about an admin takeover vulnerability, a critical vulnerability. And the subtitle, as you can see, is exploiting reduced entropy in bash random. If this doesn't make much sense right now, don't worry, I'll be explaining everything in the next couple of minutes. So, as I mentioned, I'm a founder and principal at Bridge. I got a couple of certifications over the past 3 years. I started with the classic OSCP from offensive security, and then I got a few more also from offensive security like OSEP, OSW, a few in cloud security. And I've been speaking at quite a few conferences over the past couple of years, like Blue Hat, organized by Microsoft, besides conferences all over Europe and UK, OWASP Porto, and now OWASP London as well. So thank you very much, Sam, for the invitation. What we'll be talking exactly? I'll be talking about AppSec because application security is our bread and butter at Forbridge. In particular, I'll be speaking about password reset tokens and how to attack them because this is one of my favorite things that I like to target. Why? Because, well, it's unauthenticated attack surface, right? So if we want a critical vulnerability, there's a very good chance that we might, I mean, not necessarily there's a good chance, but the unauthenticated attack surface is a good target to start with. So, as you can probably notice, this reference is the old OWASP top 10 from 2021. This slide probably needs a bit of a refresh because it was, this is a cryptographic failure vulnerability, and it was number 2 in OWASP top 10 from 2021. But I think in the 2025 version, it's number 4 right now. Now, let's get to our target, Vesta control panel. It's web-based. In case you haven't heard about it, it's similar to cPanel, VHM Plus, which we already targeted, and we found the vulnerabilities in those panels as well. If you're interested in details, you can check our previous research on our blog. It's used to manage domains, websites, databases, crons, etc. Its structure is pretty lightweight. The way it's structured, basically, there's an API written in PHP, and what this PHP frontend does, it basically calls into some bash scripts, and these bash scripts do all the heavy lifting. And as a side note, they seem to have been acquired around the time we reported this critical vulnerability to them by a company called Outroll. This is how it looks like. It's pretty standard stuff. You will see the interface a bit later as well, because I will try to do a live demo. Hopefully that will work. As I said, you can manage the web server, DNS, mail, database, and all the other good stuff. So I found out that the source code is available on GitHub. So I said, excellent, let's do a white box pen test, right? Because I always prefer to do a white box pen test when I can, because it simply allows me to find more vulnerabilities, maybe more critical in nature, as you will see today. And it's way more helpful for me to look at the code. Also, I have to say that I do have previous experience as a PHP developer, so that's why I started my career. A couple of issues were reported previously. You can search on Meetup, and you'll find a couple of issues there. There are all sorts of issues which I guess are pretty standard in PHP applications, like command injection, argument injection, etc., all that kind of stuff. So I was wondering, like, can we find one more critical? As the saying goes, there's always one more. But before going to the critical vulnerability, I want to show you a bit about how the process went. So before discussing the actual vulnerability, let's discuss some interesting dodgy code patterns that I noticed initially. So the first one, there was a script called add cron. So I thought, add cron sounds interesting. Like, what if I can, maybe I can add a cron which will execute, I don't know, hourly and give me a reverse shell or something like that. Like, that would be nice. That was my initial thought. And I also noticed, like, it processes a lot of user input. So I'm like, maybe I can find some command injection or something like that. The one thing I noticed with this pattern that they keep using throughout the code is that there's no explicit authentication check at the top of the file, right? It only checks if the request is a post request, which is trivial to bypass, right? And then it does like a CSRF check. It checks the token from the post request if it's equal to token in session. So like it's a standard CSRF check. Again, this is not a problem for an attacker. And then they do some good stuff, right? When they process all the input here, they pass it through escape shell arg, which is good. Like that's a good pattern for the developers. So good for them. Now, if we look at the bottom, it calls the function exec. It calls this script called add cron job, and then it passes all these variables. Now, one thing that you will notice here is that the user variable is not going through escape shell arg, but all the other variables are going through escape shell arg. So I thought like, maybe we can do something about injecting in user or something like that. So I was like, okay, interesting. That could be an option. So I was like, let's see, where does the user variable come from? And it comes from the session. So I thought, one interesting idea that I had was maybe I can find like a session pollution type of vulnerability, which are pretty rare to find, to be honest, but I've seen it happening. So I couldn't find anything like that, couldn't bypass this to inject anything into user. So this proved to be a dead end, but anyway, it was like interesting to research. So now let's look at the second dodgy code pattern that I noticed. Now this is in a script called gen SSL cert. So as you can imagine, this is used to generate TLS certificates on the server, right? Because when you have a panel like this, you're managing multiple domains. And one of the things that you want to do is to be able to generate TLS certificates for these websites, right? Again, there's no authentication, no explicit authentication check at the top. So basically, I was able to call this script at will, unauthenticated. So I was able to generate as many TLS certificates that I wanted, and they were stored somewhere on the file system. Another idea that I had here, again, they're using escape shell arg. So I thought, okay, maybe I can find like a 0-day in escape shell arg or something like that. So I wrote some fuzzers in PHP and also in C using libfuzzer to fuzz escape shell arg. But again, I didn't have any luck. I guess, to be fair, there were a lot of bugs in escape shell arg in the past. You can search like the PHP bugs tracker and you will see that it was heavily targeted in the past couple of years. Cool. So now let's get to the main issue, the password reset process. So when you try to reset the password, you get an email like this, which, as you can see here, contains the user, which is admin, because I'm trying to target the admin user, right? And then there's a secret code, this code. And this is exactly what I'm interested in. So the question is, how is this code generated? Let's see. First of all, I looked into the index.php file in the reset folder. So what does this do basically? When a user tries to reset his password, it submits this code that you've seen in the previous email, right? And then essentially what the script does, every user has an associated file on the file system. And this file on the file system contains an R key, which is basically the same password reset token or the same password reset code that you've seen in the email. So it checks if the value from the file is equal to the code from the email. If these two are equals, it means, okay, so the user has the right code. I'm going to let him reset his password. That's what this does basically. So again, this is how the file looks in the file system, right? The admin user and any user has a similar file. And at the bottom here, you see the password, which is stored in MD5. Now, this is a different issue, but we're not gonna look into that today. And at the bottom is the R key, which is the code, the password reset token that you've seen in the email. Now, an important observation that I have to make here, this code is generated once at installation time, right? So that's where the first version of the code comes from. And then every time the user successfully resets his password, a new code will be generated, will be stored in this file, and it will be used at the next password reset. Okay? So essentially, you can't just go to the forgot link, try to trigger the reset password, and receive like a different code. No, you have to complete the password reset process to generate a new code. Okay? So once the user submits the correct code, this bash script is called, because like I said, every PHP script calls into a bash script. So what does this bash script do? It does two things. First of all, it changes the, so it calculates the next password reset token here using a function called generate password, which we'll look at in a bit, yeah. And then it also updates the user with MD5 of the new password. So our key, which is the password reset token, is generated with this function called generate password. So let's analyze this function. What does this bash function called generate password do? First of all, it uses the random variable in PHP, right? And then it has this char set, which is basically alphanumeric characters from A to Z, and it randomly generates a string of length 10 characters by default, I think, right? So it uses random here, okay? Random generates a value between 0 and 32,767. Then it uses the modulo operator to choose an index somewhere between the length of this string, right? And it does this like 10 times to generate a new password reset token. So obviously, I did a bit of Google about random. I realized quickly, okay, this is not crypto secure. And I found this tool on GitHub, which is written by a gentleman called Jurian Walter. The tool is called Bash Random Cracker. So essentially, this guy created this tool, which we can use to find the seed of the random number generator, and we can also use it to predict some random values. Oh, sorry. Let me have some water first. So, as you can see in the first example, if we call this tool bash and crack with 3 random values, it will discover that the seed was this one, 2 billion something, a very long number, and then it will also predict the next 3 random values, right? Basically, it says if you call random again, you'll get these 3 values. And you can see these 3 values here match with these 3 random values. So this is pretty cool, pretty useful. And also, the random is deterministic, and you can seed it yourself. And if you seed it with a certain value, you'll always get the same output. So you can see here, I seed it with 1337. I do echo 3 randoms, and I get these values. And then I repeat the process here, and again, I get the same values. So it's deterministic, which is very good for us. So I looked at the tool, and I wrote something similar for myself in Rust. I'm not much of a Rust coder, so it is what it is, but it works. This is basically the function that calculates the next seed. Essentially, the first value, it checks if the seed is 0, or if this wasn't initialized, it uses this static value, and then it does some very basic math operations on it. And then it returns the new seed. And here on the left, essentially is the algorithm that generates the next random number. So again, pretty standard stuff. I'm not sure how visible it is. The only check here, again, it's a there's nothing non-deterministic here. It does a simple check somewhere. It basically checks if the random that I just generated is equal to the previous random number that I generated. And if so, it calls itself again. So basically it checks to not duplicate, not return the same number twice. So I like, okay, so far so good. The next question that I had was, I had to do a dive into bash internals, because the question was, okay, the generator is deterministic, but how is it actually seeded? So I downloaded the bash source code, I started looking through it, and I found this function called seedRand, which is used for seeding the random number generator. So if you look at this function, it calls get time of day, right? Okay. Which basically returns the current timestamp and the current microsecond. Again, these are all very deterministic values. So these are a bad idea to use in a security sensitive operation. And then it calls the function sbrand, which essentially passes as parameter the current second XORed with the current microsecond, and also XORed with the current PID. Now, you notice I highlighted this. This is exactly where the main issue is, but it took me quite a long time to figure it out. So I'm not going to spoil it yet, just so you know, that's where the issue is. So I started thinking of a plan. My first plan was to brute force 4.3 billion values. Like, why 4.3? It's because if you look here, the seed is an unsigned long integer. So the domain for that is like 4.3 billion values. That's why. Now, this would take like a very long time. Brute forcing 4.3 billion, very long time. So bad idea, very noisy as well. Now, a couple of observations. As you noticed, getPID is called. Now, getPID in general, it's stored on 2 bytes, and it's a small value. It's easy to brute force. Now, let's talk about microseconds. Microseconds are between 0 and 1 million. So these are stored on 20 bits. 20 bits are enough, and this is also easy to brute force. So the only remaining thing to discuss is the timestamp. So the question that I had, is it possible to obtain like an information leak here? So I started to look at various endpoints, and I discovered that there were some of them that were exposing useful timestamps. What do I mean by useful timestamp? A useful timestamp is a timestamp which is exactly or around the moment in time where the last password reset was done. That would be like a useful timestamp. Anyway, all these endpoints were authenticated. So anyway, those are all my ideas. Like, if you guys have any other ideas or know any other tricks, feel free to share them. So I was completely out of ideas. And what do I do when I'm out of ideas and I'm auditing like a PHP project? I start looking into PHP internals. This is something like I regularly do. So I was looking at some PHP functions, which are also like pseudo-random, just to research. So I found this function called LCG. Now LCG returns some pseudo-random values, and as you can see here, it uses a macro called LCG, yeah, and it's got like one value here, S1, and another value, S2. The most important part here is when it sets S1 to seconds, so the timestamp, XORed with microseconds, left bit shift by 11. And then S2, similar. It does again with an XOR with microseconds, left bit shift by 11. So I'm like, that's interesting. Like, what's with this left bit shift? Like, why do they do this? And I kept thinking of this for a long time, actually. So, because it seemed like I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew like it has to be something important from a security perspective. So I kept comparing in my head the way PHP seeding is done versus the way the bash seeding is done. So in bash, there is no bit shift. We're simply XORing 3 values. Is this a problem? And I highlighted again that code at the bottom, the way it's done in bash, right? It calls get time of day, and then it XORs the current second with the current microsecond and with the process ID. And after some time of thinking, I had like an eureka moment. And I realized like the issues are the following. When we put everything together, this is what we have. The current second or the current timestamp occupies 8 bytes. However, only 4 bytes are in practice. 4 bytes are used in practice. Like you can store any value from 1970 to 2038 on just 4 bytes. Again, the microsecond also occupies 8 bytes. However, only 20 bits are enough in practice to store 1 million values. The PID, again, occupies 4 bytes. However, I did a lot of heavy testing. The maximum value that I've seen by creating fork bombs and stuff like that was around 660,000, which needs 20 bits at most. So essentially, when we're XORing all these values, what's happening in practice, we're only changing the lower 20 bits. The upper 20 bits in the timestamp remain static. There's no bit shifting here. That's why the upper bits remain static. And that's why the PHP guys probably realized this sooner, and they implemented that left bit shift, which saved them from a lot of trouble. So this was the eureka moment. Now, I got to make an observation. Like, get PID could be the only deal breaker for an attacker, but it would have to be like an extremely high value, like in the billions, so that when you're XORing with the timestamp, it changes one of the upper bits in the timestamp. That could be like a deal breaker, but you would have to have like a computer which is running for a long time, had a lot of processes spawning and stuff like that. So in practice, like it wasn't really an issue. So once again, the issue is summarized. We're only changing the lowest 20 bits, and this reduces the seed entropy. And in practice, the seed after XORing will fall within an interval of approximately 12 days around the current timestamp. So if I'm doing a password reset now, the XOR will create a new timestamp, which will be today is 26, so minus 7 days ago, 19 to early March. That's about it, which is extremely limited. So now I'm going to show you how this looks like in practice, because I did like a PHP script to calculate the range where this timestamp will vary. So this is like a very simple PHP script, just some basic bitwise operations. I'm starting with the current timestamp. And here I'm masking all the lowest 20 bits. I'm setting them to 0. And then the next thing I do here at the bottom, I'm setting the lowest 20 bits to 1 to figure out the maximum value. Sorry. And this is how it looks like. So the original timestamp was like 8th of July 24. This is the minimum value where all the lowest bits are set to 0. And this is the maximum value where the lowest 20 bits are all set to 1, right? So this was, the minimum was like 29th of June, and the maximum was like 11th of July. So it varies a bit, but overall it's like 2 weeks around the original timestamp. So the first thing I did was I extended that tool from GitHub. I created like a local exploit where essentially I brute force like all 4 billion values. Now I could have optimized that, but I was just lazy, I think. And I written it in Rust, so it was extremely fast anyway. So in Rust, there wasn't really much need of an optimization because it was so fast. And the idea that I proposed here was to just brute force, let's say, for the last 3 years. Why 3 years? I think it's a reasonable assumption to say that the control panel was either set up in the last 3 years or that the admin did the password reset in the past 3 years. I think it's a reasonable assumption from my point of view. This is how the code looks like. I'm not sure how visible. Anyway, it's just like a simple brute force. It iterates over all the timestamp, 4 billion values. And basically, it checks, it finds out the seed that was used to generate a certain token. And here you can see how it looks in practice. So essentially, I tested this locally. I got this value from the local file, right? I ran my tool, and it discovered the seed that was used to generate that password reset token or the R key value, which was like 28th of June 24. So I'm like, cool, I'm getting a result, seems to be working. So the next thing I did, once I had this local testing done, I was like, cool, let's do it remotely. So essentially, I use Turbo Intruder, which is like a plugin for Burp Suite, which sends requests extremely fast over a custom HTTP stack. So I ported all my Rust stuff to Python. I'm brute forcing over the last 3 years. And one thing that I need to mention here, there's about 31.5 million attempts per year. So if you brute force for the last 3 years, that would make it around 95 million, or let's say 100 million, to make it a round number. So essentially, from 4.3 billion, I cut it down to 100 million, which is like a 98% optimization. So I think that's pretty good. And then if you want some other tips regarding optimizing Turbo Intruder, we can check out our other research on Concrete CMS, which was actually presented at DevSecOps last week, in case you want more speed, more optimization. And this is how it looks like with Turbo Intruder. I brute forced it over the past 3 years. And here at the top, this is the password reset token. And you can see here, what happened? Do I need a charger or something? Did I run out of battery? Hold on. The banner, right? Yes. Yeah, thank you. Let's see. Or we can use. We have a light. Is it charging? Yes, it's charging, right? Charging.
your laptop restarting?
Let me see.
Just went to sleep.
I think.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. Restarting. Sorry, few minutes.
I think it'll be. We're getting the notification on that.
Oh, I didn't even notice, to be honest. I was...
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Questions, yeah.
Get the password reset, so you need to know the username as well.
The username by default is admin. Good question.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought about that as well, and then I checked, and the username by default is admin. Yeah. Good question, though. I also asked myself the same. No worries.
You're gonna go into live demo now, right?
Yeah, this okay, almost there.
Right. Okay, you need to rejoin the Zoom.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Joining. Joining in a bit. Yeah.
Okay, you have internet, which is good.
Yeah. Let me start the container in the meantime for the demo.
If you rejoin the Zoom.
Yeah. Okay, joining now.
Recording in progress.
You turn the volume down on your laptop, otherwise you get a bit of an echo.
Cool. All right. Right. So, apologies for that. I believe we were here, right? This slide. I was just saying. So I did the brute force with Turbo Intruder. You can see at the top is the token that I found, and here on the right-hand side at the bottom, you can see that I got a 200 code, and these are all the data of the administrator, right? So I'm getting a JSON with all the administrator's data. That's just what this says. So that was like a 98% optimization from where we started, simply by brute forcing the tokens, the timestamp for the last 3 years. But there's another thing that we can do here to optimize it further. So we can actually do like a social engineering trick. And you can say, let's say, you can call the victim and you can tell them something like, hey, look, I'm from Helpdesk or I'm from your hosting company, whatever, and somebody is trying to hack your account. Please reset your password. Make sure, like you said, like a really strong password that can't be brute force. Like use special characters, uppercase, lower cases, and make it like a 20 long character password. Nobody can brute force that, right? So what's going to happen? He's going to reset his password. A new ARC will be generated in that file, which the attacker can use. And when that ARC is generated, like a new password reset token, right, is generated, that will be based on the current timestamp, XORed with speed and microsecond. And as I showed earlier, it will be like it within a very small interval between a week ago and a week in the future. So an attacker knows that, and he only has to brute force that 2-week interval. Okay, that's like a 1.2 million brute force attempts, which is like a 99.97 optimization from where we started. Because we started with 4.3 billion, and then if we can do this social engineering trick, we reduced it to 1 million attempts or 1.2, whatever. Now, let's see a demo. Hopefully this works. Let's see. Oh, sorry.
Can you explain what you are attacking?
Yeah, so I'll just say. So I have Vesta set up in a container. Let me see where it is. Let me close the cup. Yeah, so this is Vesta, right? This is my target. It's set in a container on localhost port 8083. So I'm going to run this exploit, and we're going to simulate the social engineering attack that I did earlier, just to make it a bit faster, right? To make it finish in a reasonable time. Okay. No, what's going on? It's HTTPS, probably that's why. Right, so the first thing, we called the admin, right? And he set this very strong password, as you can see, right? Let's see if we can log in. We should be able to log in with it. So this is the password that admin set, yeah? Okay. Now, where is the... Am I blind? I don't see the logout button anymore. Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, I am blind. Okay. So the admin reset his password, right? Now, again, this actually made it easier for an attacker to exploit him by resetting his password. Now it's easier because he regenerated the R key, which is the password reset token. And this is based on the very, very fresh timestamp, which means a lot less brute force for the attacker to do. So let's see, brute forcing. Now you saw it started from like 150 something seconds and it keeps decreasing. And this should have worked. Let's see if this password works. So I'm admin, login with password for bridge.
Yes.
Yep, that's it. In case you're interested in other research of ours, some of our leading research insights, the concrete CMS stuff, which again I presented at DevSecOps last week, the field dating application, all your stuff was basically exposed there, but it was fixed because we worked with them, they fixed everything. And also we did some research on phishing where we extended the Evil Jinx toolkit. Questions?
Yeah, got a
Paul,
question.
yes.
Thanks, Sam. Does Vesta actually fixed it? And if so, were you using an old version or?
So what happened, we reached out to them, they ignored us. No answer. And then we published everything after about 3 months. And at some point, like I was Googling, see what people are saying and stuff like that. And I found out from a GitHub issue somewhere that they basically discontinued this project and they recommended using like a new one, which was like just a rebranded version, but this issue was fixed in the new project, whatever it was called. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So, but that means that there's still lots of Vesta installations.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, there were like, yeah, yes, probably. There were when I googled on Shodan, there were like a couple of tens of thousands of it. Yeah.
I noticed that I was there, I noticed that was quite close. It's quite close. We use it experience, open source for the home. I able to rapidly because several has for that. Someone expressed that she
So if the, I guess the question was if open source is more vulnerable. I think all software has vulnerabilities, in my experience. The good part, you know, when it's open source, at least you can audit it, you know. I've also noticed that a lot of guys, for example, they find a lot of vulnerabilities with black box approaches as well. It's just that certain type of vulnerabilities take more time with black box. So for example, you'd have to do a lot more reverse engineering, you know? So it's more time consuming. But the vulnerability, like if you spend the time, you'll still find an issue if you have to decompile some .NET or some Java app or something like that. I'll still find stuff like this. It's just that I have more time. I need to spend more time on reverse engineering. That's it.
One more question.
Pleasure. Blue hat. So
For the details, for the recruit of the server, and that will be set the process ID and also set.
if that would make like a difference for an attacker, I don't think it would make a difference for an attacker, to be honest. But there were, let's say, some similar scenarios where I did think of something like DDoSing the Apache workers, because I've looked into similar projects, and my idea was similar, like crash some Apache workers, and once you crash them, essentially what you achieve with that, you reinforce the reinitialization of the seed. So that's something that, yeah.
Okay, let's all take Adrian. So we are going to take this 5 minutes quick break, and then we'll have the last of the day. Gary will be with us in 5 minutes. Hopefully there's still some pizza and still drinks remaining. Yeah, see you in 5 minutes.
I shared with you the Excel with the names. Did you get that?
Yeah, I saw it.
Cool.
Your microphone?
Yeah, sure. I heard about it. I've seen stuff like
And everyone, if you haven't scanned the QR codes to win the raffle prize, we have 2 raffle prizes tonight. A reminder, we have Nintendo Switch 2 console, and we have a Flipper Zero research tool. Please scan the codes and register with these gadgets. You will enter the raffle. And if you want to do NFT, please come and see me.
Yeah, and in terms of going back and forward.
For slides, yeah, if I give you three.
Yeah.
Which one? Flip a 0 one. All right. Okay, everyone, please start taking your seats. Hey, everyone, please take your seats. Hopefully, yeah. Please take your seats. We're ready for our next presentation. Eric, can I stick this on you? Because this is for the.
Sorry. No, you don't.
Yeah.
I should be up there. So.
Already, and introduce Mariya committee, who is a identity specialist. Been a long time researching about all issues regarding identity. So, short of time, let's give a big round of applause for Gary.
Hi. Hi. Good. Yeah, so, thank you very much. Okay, so I just click the back and forward, right? Okay. So yeah, so I'm Gary Archer from Curity, and I'm going to do a talk on AI security from the viewpoint of enterprises. So it will be a fairly technical talk, but hopefully not too bad, not too painful, and maybe 20 minutes or so. So because I realize you've been here quite a while. Oops. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I have a teaching role on API security and identity. So I do a lot of writing articles, a bit of presenting, as you can see, code examples, etc. I'm one of the authors of this book, and it's all about API first thinking, API first security, and it's very relevant to the world of AI. So I'm going to cover some of the techniques today. So the first thing you notice about AI is it's an interoperable ecosystem. So built on interoperable protocols. And to do anything useful, you need data. And there's two protocols that involve security. One of them is called Model Context Protocol, or MCP, and the other is called Agent to Agent, or A2A. So typically in this kind of ecosystem, you write a server, and clients use interoperability to connect in predictable ways. And therefore, you need to use interoperable security as well. Right? And so when you do, there's typically three main requirements. You need to authenticate humans operating the agents. You should aim to authenticate the agent itself so that you know a malicious program is not calling you. And most importantly of all, the agent should get least privilege access to your business data. So you should be in control of what the agent can do. So as some of you may be aware, MCP has an authorization specification. It's a profile of OWASP. And OWASP is basically end-to-end security for APIs, many types of clients, and for users. It's vetted and interoperable, and it gives you this end-to-end security, which is typically what you want at enterprises. So some of you may have used MCP authorization. Any of you guys connected MCP to OWASP? Yeah, so when you do, typically, this diagram here represents the kind of use case where people often get started, like an employee might use something like Tool Desktop or ChatGPT. What you do is you register an MCP server URL, and then the agent like ChatGPT or something will use an MCP client to connect to the server. So the user will get redirected to log in, and then eventually the MCP client gains access to MCP servers and to APIs. And the most important part of this access is the access token, because the access token controls what the agent can do with your business data. So the access token is a lot more important than people sometimes think. So really, when you think of AI agents, often they're a new type of user agent. Certainly the chat clients are anyway. Typically, if you're an enterprise, you've got maybe 10 years of existing investment in APIs. So you've built many APIs. And MCP can call those existing APIs as tools. So API endpoints can be selectively exposed to the agent and used to provide data to the large language models that the agent uses, and therefore users can crunch their own data in interesting ways, get reports or PDFs or whatever they need. So there is a bigger picture though, because typically as well as meeting your AI requirements, you have many other types of API clients, right? This is one deployment, but another deployment of interest is a use case that a lot of enterprises want, is to have a customer service portal where the user can ask a natural language question, and that can use the A2A protocol, so you can run an agent in the back end. Sometimes you can apply better security in the back end, and all it changes then is that the MCP stuff happens in the back end. Both MCP and A2A, they use OWASP, they use access tokens, and the access tokens control the level of access. So many people use OWASP, right? You probably many people here, you're a developer, you've used OWASP before, and you've connected to various systems. It's a low-code technology. In OWASP, you should never write much code to actually deal with OWASP. They're just very lightweight messages, validate a JOT access token, or run a code flow. These things are low code. But often what's true is that many organizations use OWASP suboptimally, especially when it comes to access tokens. And access tokens can easily allow too much access. So in the world of AI agents, it's even more important that you restrict access so that it's time-based and has limited permissions to your enterprise resources. When getting started on exposing sensitive data to AI agents, it's recommended to sort of do a bit of thinking about your API architectures and whether they're ready for it and whether you have the right ingredients. So, for example, many APIs, most developers would ensure that user A can't access user B's data. That's pretty common. But often there's two big problems with APIs, especially at scale, and these are security boundaries and the kind of AI context that you need. So one picture that you quite often see is a kind of API sprawl with access tokens where different teams kind of go about things their own way. They use different token issuers. They maybe don't have any shared principles for how they handle tokens, or maybe not enough, or maybe there's a bit of a lack of governance going on. So what I'm going to suggest is some ways to deal with that kind of problem. And really, access tokens are the way you should think of them is they are the gateway to your business data. So it's not just a technical concern; it affects your business people, compliance teams, various roles within the organization. And what you can do is you can design access tokens in terms of your business, and you tend to get better results that way and a better shared understanding. And as I say, you get those kind of shared principles. So the way that you go about designing tokens in terms of your business is you use a centralized token issuer called the authorization server. And this would give you the very complete control over what goes into the access token so that you can define your own policies, give your APIs the right information, because access tokens get delivered to APIs ultimately, and it's the APIs that provide that enterprise resource access. So it's all about getting the access tokens right, making sure you've got the right human approvals and so on. And to sort of solve that problem, you use what I consider to be the two biggest building blocks of OWASP, which are scopes and claims. I'm going to talk about scope. So scopes define security boundaries, and that's really all they do. Security boundaries for areas of your data and operations on that data. So often a good approach when you start looking at scopes for your organization is to design it in terms of areas of the business. So for example, you might have retail and commercial areas of the business, and an API endpoint that deals with retail functionality wouldn't accept an access token with a commercial scope. Right? Pretty straightforward. And sometimes you introduce high privilege scopes. That's another reason to introduce scopes. So for example, if commercial legal contracts is a particularly sensitive area, then you use a separate scope for it that you wouldn't give to an AI agent, that you give to very few clients, and maybe requires strong user authentication or something. So, so the idea behind naming scopes after business areas is that more people will understand it. Security administrators will understand scopes based on domain keywords, so will the business, so will the compliance teams, so should your engineers, right? And consent is an important area as well, because consent is very relevant actually when a user's data is being provided to a large language model. The user may or may not want that. So there's some advantages because the user can ask questions about their data in new ways, but some users might not want it. So therefore, you can use a consent screen that informs the user about the areas of data and various attributes. You could even put on here, your data will be released to a large language model. Are you happy with that? Blah, blah, blah. So respecting user privacy and the data owner's privacy is a big part of OWASP. And after the event, when you go live, typically these days, APIs and the authorization server can write audit logs. You can aggregate those logs. People can see how scopes are used at scale, by which AI agents, and this can bring a kind of organization to your large-scale API access. So you can ask questions like, which agents have been using which scopes, and monitor how well security is working, whether anything unexpected is happening. But scopes don't help you with authorization, really. All they do is set boundaries. So to do authorization, you need claims, and claims give you the main values you need for authorization. And claims is very much an extensible ecosystem as well. So, you know, APIs, what we recommend at Purity is that every API receives a JSON Web Token format of access token. And on every single request, they can cryptographically verify the token. If it's ever tampered with, the API rejects it. So this means there's a secure mechanism for delivering AI context to your APIs, and it can't be forged, right? So if you say in a token that an AI agent is present, no AI agent can lie about that, as we'll see. And one interesting thing about the authorization server is one of its roles is a collector of claims. So a good authorization server can use many security standards to connect to external systems and get claims in various ways. So I'm going to try to explain something that links to Mariya's talk from earlier. So one of the things coming later in 2026 is this EU mobile wallets initiative that some of you may have heard of. And the idea is that for the HR use case we heard about earlier, the user can authenticate with a mobile wallet and release attributes about themselves. So Mariya will be much happier because she'll know who people are. She'll get like claims like the degree type and the nationality, etc. And there'll be, you know, obviously it takes a while for systems to catch up with technology, but that's the idea, is that, you know, once a user's authenticated, you know this, and it's strongly verified using cryptography. And so that's one of the things that claims give you. It gives you this extended business reach, and ultimately the authorization server issues access tokens, and the access tokens contain attributes that enable the correct authorization in your APIs. So the end-to-end mechanism can be a little bit complicated, but as I said earlier, there's very little code involved at the application level. For APIs, the job is very easy. So, and so like, in AI use cases, security requirements can be more dynamic. For example, an authorization server could get a risk score or something from a risk engine or something, and potentially issue that to an access token in a very dynamic way and give that to APIs. So, not sure if that made sense, but ultimately it's about what your APIs receive. You know, so if you've got your orders API, customers API, etc., they receive useful information. So this is the most important slide, I would say, in my presentation today, because it's really the empowering your APIs with the right information to authorize AI. So those of you who've read about Purity stuff may have heard that we recommend returning opaque access tokens to the outside world, to internet clients. And these are like random strings, like UUIDs. They're unguessable, but you can't read what's in them if you're an internet client. And when that token flows through the API gateway, it gets exchanged for a JOT access token. And the JOT access token has claims that the API needs. And one of the things about scopes that's very important is when you issue a scope to an access token, you can issue a collection of claims. And so there's a relationship between scopes and claims. So in this example, we have a commercial order scope. We have some kind of an American administrator from a business partner. And we also inform the API that an AI agent is present. The client type is AI agent. So it's very easy for the API developer to adjust their authorization, and maybe a US administrator maybe usually can do many things, but in an AI context, you can reduce the what the user can do, maybe to 3 safe operations or something like that. Hope that makes sense. So it's easy for the API to deny access to certain operations once it has this attribute here. So it's all attribute-based access control that OWASP does. So that's probably the main things to understand is scopes for security boundaries and claims for the dynamic context, information from external systems. And with OWASP, you get this separation of concerns, you get a few more endpoints and things, and a few more messages flying around, but it simplifies application code and makes it easier to change. There are a few other important patterns just to finish. I've got three things just to finish. One of them is when possible, use strong client credentials for agents to make sure that a malicious program isn't calling your APIs. So whether you can do that depends a little bit on where the client runs, but for backend clients, so for backend AI agents, you can use things like workload identities. One example is a Kubernetes service account token. And those kind of workload identities are basically, they're a token for authentication. And so some authorization servers will allow you to send a token for authentication and get back an access token, which is the token for authorization. So they've got very different, even though they're both tokens, they've got very different properties from a security viewpoint. Next thing is around human approvals, because humans should be in control of agents. And OWASP has mechanisms to ensure that. We saw it with the consent screen. We saw it with the administrator configuring which scopes a client is allowed. And one interesting use case is that some AI workflows are quite long running, right? You might say to, a person might say to an AI agent, book me a flight when the price gets under $200 or something. And so it can be long running. And by the time it needs to complete, the user is no longer present. So one pattern that OWASP gives you is called the SIBA flow. And this is typically to complete a transaction, the AI agent needs to get an access token with a high privilege scope, a high enough privilege scope to, you know, book that flight and pay for that flight perhaps. And so it can reach out to the user and use some kind of mobile notification to get verification and approval and get that high scope access token so that it can complete its task. So, you know, it's just worth being aware of that all of these design patterns exist in OWASP. There's many specifications that experts have thought about, and they're all available for you to use if you want to use them in AI use cases. And last but not least, there's one other pattern I want to mention, which is called token exchange. It's going to be very common in AI workflows, which get more automated and can potentially go across organizations. So this will be a fairly common flow where there's a 3-token flow where you do an exchange when the token first reaches the back end, and then the agent calls an upstream API and needs to get a different token. So it's all about, for each resource server, it's all about delivering the optimal token, again, with useful scopes and claims. And there are some emerging standards that allow token exchange across organizations as well. So like I say, people are thinking about these things. So from a future possibilities viewpoint, it's very useful. So really, OWASP is often misunderstood. It's not about logging in, it's about the access token, and it's about the organization it can bring to an enterprise, a large-scale access. So obviously you need to make trade-offs before you give data to an LLM. You know, is the owner of that data happy about it? Or is there any potential negative impact on the business? Does it break any compliance rules? And if you can get this kind of people alignment around AI objectives and show that you're controlling the access, you can make trade-offs like allowing AI to use low to medium sensitivity data, but maybe not the high sensitivity stuff. Yeah, so, and like I say, OWASP evolves. So as AI initiatives evolve, it'll continue to do so, but it usually comes down to these 3 main things: human in the loop mechanisms, user authentication and approvals, authenticate the agents, and most importantly, lock down access tokens so that you restrict what agents can do. So that's it. That was quite technical. I hope it made a little bit of sense. If you're interested, there's some resources on the Curity website. So we separate our stuff into non-vendor specific design pattern-based stuff. So all of those articles there are not specific to our product. They are just general design patterns. And similarly, if you scan that QR code, I think you can download an electronic copy of that book in case you're interested. It's quite nerdy and it's all about tokens, so it's not for everyone. But like I said, there's business value behind this. You can bring organization and extend your business reach potentially using OWASP and AI together. So that's all I had.